Welcome back. Welcome back, friends. Sarah was pointing out the necessity of Catholic homes of having blessed salt, holy water, and blessed oil. I can tell you in this home, we're ready for the apocalypse, baby. And
on candles. I should have said blessed candles. I didn't
and
find out the
candles,
blessed
and
Right.
candles, and candles.
But it's interesting because Catholics, this is just as a digression, but I think it's something that people aren't aware of. Our Lord can't be outdone in generosity, and he will not withhold a blessing. He is so gracious with his blessings that he will take a relic of a saint, a first class relic, and a second class relic, and anything that is touched to those things becomes a third class relic in its own right. It's a constant imparting of grace upon grace upon grace. He will not withhold a blessing. And if somebody, like, if you spread your salt in a land that rejects it, that blessing comes back to you, to be reused again. So, I don't know how long, there are theologians who will discuss how long, can you keep adding one drop of holy water to a gallon? Like, I mean, how strong is the blessing, right? I mean, we could get into kind of a silly, how many heads dance on the pinhead kind of discussion. But the reality is, at this point in our life, God is merciful, and those sacred sacramentals are available to us for our asking.
They certainly are. 40 hours devotion, which we often associate with the days leading up to Ash Wednesday, were previously kept, so we're highlighting, we're just picking out the assumption, were previously kept, especially around Easter. Note that it is more than just, the days leading up to Ash Wednesday. Easter, Pentecost, Christmas Day, and Assumption Day. 4 days. On this, Father Weiser notes the following, and so I have him linked. Usually the origin of the 40 days devotion is ascribed to the city of Milan, where in 1527, in a time of war and calamities, the faithful were invited to visit the exposed Blessed Sacrament 4 times a year and to pray to the Eucharistic Lord, imploring his mercy and help. There's that idea that we can't outdo our Lord in generosity. The dates for this devotion, which we call 40 Days Prayer, were Easter, Pentecost, Feast of the Assumption, and Christmas. Forgotten Customs of Our Lady's Nativity by Matthew Please. One of the 3 birthdays celebrated. So we have our Lord, we have John the Baptist, and we have Our Ladies, as well as their departure. So, right, we have Good Friday, the beheading of John the Baptist, and the Assumption of Our Lady. It's the beginning of fall, the blessing of the summer harvest, and the fall planting of seeds. And with this Garden of Graces that we're here tilling, I just think there was just such rich imagery. The French wine growers called this feast Our Lady of the Grape Harvest. So it's starting to see this, just like the Jewish feasts throughout the year start to have this immersion of the year. So too, these feasts and fast days start to encompass the year with moments of deeper walking with our Lord and with community. The festive meal, so we're back to Our Lady of the Grape Harvest. The festive meal included new grapes, a donation to the poor in honor of Our Lady's Nativity. And the idea is to strengthen our relationship with the Lord with our rich community, both dead and alive. So Sarah makes up, right, church extension of Jesus, both in space and time, those who came before us. When we come into agreement with our forebearers in faith, we bring their patrimony into the present. And Satan attacks that unity of here in the present with those who came before us in the past with such a vengeance because of the power it holds. Sarah talked about that just months ago, but that idea came from one of the leading voices waging here in Texas against voter fraud. And she said this, and I forget, it was a Protestant minister who hit on this idea that Satan comes after our history, and especially our history of faith with our forebears, because we come into unity with these ideals, right? We were a few weeks ago, we were out in some ranching country, and one of the ranches in the area was very beautiful and large. Well, that's 3 generations, right? It wasn't the first generation. It took time, and it took an agreement with the subsequent generations to build onto and to work it and to sacrifice, fasting, and enjoying its fruits and the beauty. So that today it is a beautiful, large piece of land. And that's the way it is with the faith too, in these feast days, right? That handing on, that coming into agreement with. And I tell you, that's an idea that's tracking, not just within Catholicism or some in Catholicism.
That's right. Yeah.
It's tracking also in the Protestant world.
Yeah, and I think that it's very clear, just existentially, that when you see the familial cycle growing in harmony, right, where the father creates a patrimony, right, the making of the father, right, which is the making of his patrimony that he's going to hand on through the mother to the child, right? When this is working in unity, it is something that's really beautiful to behold. But I was just thinking, at the same time that you had the Second Vatican Council, there was also an incredible rupture between the children and the adults, right? I mean, that was the generation of the trust no adults, we don't want anything from authority, right? And so that generation spurned the gift of the father, right? They really spurned it. And now you look and you see that the children of that same generation are doing the same thing to them. So if there's a familial loving relationship that is solid like that, where there is kind of a fiduciary responsibility, that there's a union of trust between the fathers and the sons, then there's peace, right? There'll be blessings that come from that down the road, like you were talking about with that ranch. But now you can see the destruction. Children are rising up and cursing their parents. And where you see that really, really concretely, and it's not maybe per se it needed to be destroyed a little bit, but the concept of the ancestor worship in the Asian and Chinese cultures, right, where they had such a strong devotion and ties to the people who had come before them. It was actually one of the first things that the communists did, was to destroy that.
Sure,
because they recognize inherently that if there is a filial bond between the child and the father, then there can be no control by the totalitarian.
That's right. And that's where you see such an attack on, we'll see attack on history in general, the tearing down of the statues, this curriculum that's trying to be promoted in the schools. Yes, you go after that history, because that bond, that coming into agreement, it's God's grace, right? It's that patrimony of grace, and you come into agreement with that from before, and you're offering it also with your own efforts and desires. It's a powerful tool, and Satan will always, always, always go after that, because it's such a disruptor. All right, we're going to stop there, and we're going to go into practical application. How do we do this Catholic culture thing? And maybe we'll come up with an idea or two. Till then, Fides et Ratio.